Of course, I remember what happened on that terrible evening. Even if I wanted to, I could not forget the events of that damned night. I know you do not believe me. No one in their right mind would believe it. I myself would have laughed at anyone who had even hinted at something like that, if I had not seen with my own eyes that disgusting, unspeakable, and unnatural spectacle. But you need the details, and I'll have to start from the beginning. We moved into this neighborhood 2 years ago. My wife and I, with our 2 children, bought a nice cozy house in this quiet, shady street. My wife is a wonderful mother. She spent the whole day doing household chores. Our children went to school nearby, and I went to work in the city center. We were a happy family until some bad luck made me buy that damn meat. You've probably seen the butcher shop on Main Street, the one where the gloomy fat man stands behind the counter all day, wearing a bloody apron and proudly displaying his big lumps of raw meat in the window. In his shop, the meat is always fresh and juicy, and no matter if you fry it, roast it, or boil it, the succulent meat just melts in your mouth. I do not know what made me enter his wretched shop and buy 3 kilograms of pork that evening. Had I known then how things would turn out, I would never have set foot across his threshold. But I was unaware of the dangers, even though I glimpsed the evil glint in the eyes of that vile butcher when he handed me the package of meat, and even though I noticed that despite the cold weather, the meat was very warm. How could I have been so careless? When I got home, I threw the package of meat in the fridge and went upstairs, collapsed into bed without even undressing. It had been a hard day at work, and I was extremely tired. My children were playing somewhere in the street, and my wife was hanging up clothes in the backyard. I didn't sleep very well. I had a very strange dream. I dreamed that there was a pig farm, wandering across aimlessly, making my way through the mucky sties. The buildings were falling apart and looked almost as if they had been abandoned. There were remnants of stone walls, pieces of charred wood, and other garbage. The sties were filled with pigs, and disgusting animals were wallowing in the mud, rolling over and over and covering themselves with dirt. These fat pigs stared at me as I walked past, with drool and slobber dripping from their snouts. There was something overworldly, something inexplicable about the place. It exuded the air of something disgusting and evil. I wandered among strange ramshackle buildings and the mucky pigsties as if I was spellbound. Something inside me would not allow me to leave this accursed place. I was looking for something, but it did not know what. Then I found it. Half hidden under a layer of mud was a hatch with a rusty iron ring. I do not know why I did not run away from there at once. Instead, I pulled up the rusty ring, opened the hatch, and peered down into the darkness. A set of stone steps led down to a dungeon. A faint ray of sunlight lit up one tiny corner of the dungeon, And that's when I saw them. Bones. The floor of the dungeon was littered with bones. Hundreds, thousands of skeletons lying there in the dark. Some were very fresh, with hunks of meat still clinging to them. Others were dry and dusty, and must have been there for years. I do not remember how long I crouched there, staring down into that monstrous cave. All of a sudden, I woke up in a cold sweat. It was the middle of the night. My heart was pounding in my chest and I could barely breathe. I looked over and saw my wife snoring peacefully beside me. Although I tried, I could not get back to sleep, and when I looked out the window, I saw the sky was already beginning to brighten as the dawn approached. I decided to take an early morning drive to calm my nerves. I got into my car and drove out to the countryside. I wanted to get some fresh air and convince myself that my nightmare was no more than a delusion. When I got back to my house, it was around noon. As soon as I opened the door, the unmistakable smell of grilled meat hit my nostrils. At that moment, it seemed like the most appalling, terrible stench I had ever smelled. I went into the kitchen and saw my wife and children sitting at the table. They were eating big hunks of juicy roasted meat, the same meat I had bought at the butcher shop. I watched them gnawing the cooked flesh off the bone like wild animals, chewing, chomping, and slurping with abandon, then swallowing it down with relish. Their hands and mouths were covered in grease, and they licked their lips hungrily. My wife was about to say something to me, when suddenly she stopped in mid-sentence and started coughing and choking. The children started coughing and spluttering too. Then they all fell to the ground and began writhing around, foaming at the mouth. I stood there, unable to move, but I saw everything, all the hideous details. No, please don't force me to remember that abominable scene. How can I put such a monstrous sight into words? How can I describe the way the children and the wife suddenly started gnawing at each other's limbs, tearing off pieces of flesh with their teeth? I can't bear to talk about how they grabbed knives and began slicing pieces of flesh off each other and devouring them. I simply cannot put into words the grisly mess they made as they gobbled, chomped, and chewed on each other's bones until all that was left were just their skeletonized bodies lying in a pool of blood and guts on the nice white tiled floor of the kitchen. And that's how the police found me the next morning, surrounded by the skeleton remains of my beloved family. They dragged me out in handcuffs. They accused me of horrible crimes. They told lies about me and said I ate my entire family. No, it's not true. Do not believe their lies. They're involved in a conspiracy against me. They're protecting the butcher. They've eaten his damn meat and they're lying to protect him. You too. You probably ate that meat. That's why you don't believe me. You ate that damn meat. You're no longer people. You hear me? You're not people anymore. You're meat. Meat. Living and breathing carcasses covered in horrible, disgusting, juicy, succulent, delicious human meat.